You are listening to the Nottingham Recovery Network podcast, where we tell true stories of people who've walked the path of recovery and hear from those that supported them every step of the way. Real people, real recovery, real hope.
Hi and welcome back to the Nottingham Recovery Network podcast. It's been a while, but we're back. And this week we are speaking to Regional Strategic Manager for Criminal Justice, Jez and James, who is a clinical practitioner and open to recovery pathway advisor. So thanks for coming in, guys. Thanks for spending a bit of time with us. I know everyone's super busy. So you guys both work for the criminal justice side of NRN, which we call Clean Slate. So Jez, what is Clean Slate about, and what you guys do?
So Clean Slate, I talk about its inception. Clean Slate was brought together out of 3 services that were 2 probation substance use services and 1 NHS prison rapid access service, and that formulated Clean Slate, and that was 9 years ago. And the primary focus, I'd say, for Clean Slate is the main treatment provider for the 4 criminal justice pathways coming into service. And those 4 criminal justice pathways are anyone who is got a propensity to offend due to substance use issues, could be sentenced to a community sentence treatment requirement, which comes in the form of a drug rehabilitation requirement, which is from the courts. So that's one pathway. The other pathway is if I'm a probation officer and I'm working with somebody and clearly substance use is an issue, then they have the ability to refer into Clean Slate to support that individual, he, she or they, for ongoing treatment. The third one is the police. If individuals are arrested, end up down the custody suite and got a substance use issue, then the Clean Slate team will engage them if they consent to us seeing them. And that's another referral pathway in, plus out-of-court disposals, which come from the police, and voluntary attendances. And the fourth is prisons. And that's the continuity care pathway, where individuals, as you know, will be incarcerated due to offences committed. And it's for the prison custody engagement team to engage those individuals while they're in a prison setting for assertive outreach. And when those individuals are released, they will work their way back into the criminal justice core team for ongoing treatment. So that's sort of it in a nutshell.
So, in layman's terms, someone gets released from prison, they might be on a script in prison, or they might have even developed a problem in prison.
Sure.
Or had one before.
Yeah.
They come out and you guys pick them up and they become part of NRN and ongoing treatment.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Right.
Yeah.
And James, with your role, mate, what does that sort of involve?
Yeah, so I deal with prison releases on day release. So somebody comes in on a day release, I will sort of clerk them in, take their information, give them a prescription, check on mental health and stuff like that, and then other duties are interventions. So people that are on DRRs and stuff like that, we have some structured sessions that we'll do, risk management, comprehensive assessments and stuff like that, and come up with care plans.
Okay. So these people, men and women that are in the prison system, is drugs still a big issue in prison, or has treatment become more effective in prison?
Drugs are always an issue in prison. And synthetic cannabinoids still have a place in prison. Hooch, alcohol, fermented through potatoes, that's still an issue in prison. I think the individuals that come into service are those that mainly have gained a dependency to substances through childhood traumatic experiences. They're in and out of the system, and it's that continued churn of working their way into the criminal justice system, committing offences, the traumas are not being dealt with, and they end up in this continued cycle. And I would say the majority of service users that come into Clean Slate are individuals of that type.
Okay, so so I guess it's a chicken and egg a little bit, isn't it? Like we've spoken before about, some people would say like 99% substance use issues come from traumatic or childhood trauma or trauma in your past, and then people develop a habit. They've got to fund that habit sometimes, some ways, not always legally. They end up in prison, in and out.
Yeah.
So in prison, what does the treatment look like in prison?
Ultimately, individuals will be treated for their substance use issues, provided with opiate substitute treatment in the form of a methadone prescription or buprenorphine. If they've got an alcohol dependency, they will be detoxed within like 7 days while they're in there. So that's why alcohol doesn't really get picked up as an issue, as an ongoing issue within the prison system, but it is present. But do they get a high level of psychosocial interventions that run alongside that? They used to, but as you know, in these fields, we are working at capacity. So the majority of treatment that I think would be medicalised, do you know what I mean? They used to run groups and rehabilitation focus, but it's dependent how much capacity prisons have got to deliver a wide range of treatment interventions like we do within NRN.
I think also the sort of cohort of people that we're dealing with are doing very short prison terms. So by the time a referral's gone through for psychosocial stuff, they're often released. So there's no meaningful time whilst they're in prison to do any beneficial work.
And what's the risk if Clean Slate weren't around to pick people up as they leave prison? What's the risk there?
If individuals, I love Clean Slate. I worked in the system for a considerable amount of years. They just fall through the gaps. The criminal justice approach to treatment is one of high intensity. It's always been like that. So I've worked in the field for 25 years, and it's always the one where you have a higher rate of appointments, higher frequency, because you're right, you've alluded to it. The individuals that come through the prison system, if you look at their history, some of them are the most traumatised individuals that you'll deal with. You know, in your world, Rich, don't you, that there are individuals that are victims themselves, do you know what I mean? And a lot of them are within the criminal justice system. So I feel if Clean Slate wasn't present in the likes of James, to me, and offered individuals that high level of one-to-one intervention, we won't be able to retain people in treatment. And if they're not retained in treatment, then there's a risk of reoffending. There's also a risk of harm to them and also a risk of harm to the public. So we've got to be really, that's one of the key features, I say, with Clean Slate.
I think one of the biggest risks is overdose. So people that come out of prison are more likely to overdose. So just the fact that, like we've got Clean Slate provide at, say, Nottingham at the departure lounge, where they'll be offered naloxone, they'll get their prescription there and stuff like that. It just people aside from a non and a prescription. It keeps them coming out so we can keep checking on them, keep doing harm reduction stuff with them, and keep offering naloxone.
And James, I guess like part of your role is building those relationships with the guys that are coming out, and on lived experience, I think we have like a bit of a, not an advantage, but like a different way of approaching things sometimes. And I know your lived experience as well. How have you found that sort of?
So I've saw it as there's pluses to it, but there's also negatives to it. So some of the negatives to it, when I've been when I was working at Departure Lounge as a recovery connector, I wasn't looked at as a worker, and I've been offered drugs a couple of times. People come up to me asking me, "But have I just got out?" And the positive to it is, I find it's easier for me to challenge people, and I have built up some really good relationships with clients of Clean Slate that are repeat offenders. So for me, I hope each time someone comes out, this is going to be the time when they do something different, and I think that sort of rubs off on them.
Mm. Are service users quite suspicious of Clean Slate when they first come in? It's like a continuation, or it could be seen as a continuation of, I've got to show up for this, I've got to show up for that.
I think those that are established understand what Clean Slate are about. I think those that aren't, because the way the criminal justice system works, you'll find that individuals are not known to Nottingham, the very first time they come into service, they're the ones who are slightly suspicious because they don't understand what Clean Slate's about. I think they don't understand how closely connected we are with the offender managers. We are commissioned to provide treatment services for the criminal justice system. That's what our ultimate goal is. That's what our ultimate commissioning aim is. But our ultimate aim is to support, offender management teams in the rehabilitation of service users and service users to engage in their treatment continuum and engage in that process. So the suspicion of that is, are you going to tell my offender manager that I've done this, this and this? And sometimes, no, our focus is treatment, do you know what I mean? But there are elements within that where if someone's index offence is X, Y and Z or done something really serious, then within the public interest you'll have to, and I think anybody would have to, and we've been in positions like that. The lived experience equation, I think that it helps to formulate a therapeutic relationship, and Clean Slate are really hot on building therapeutic relationships. Some people have been in and out of the system for years, so we know them very well, so they're not suspicious of us. And I think generally, service users generally accept Clean Slate, don't they?
Yeah. I think I don't see them as, I see it more as mistrusting, because we're dealing with people that, Jez mentioned that they had trauma, have been massively let down by services. So any service that they go with the mindset of this is just going to be the same. And that's where myself and other people can try and do things a little bit different.
And you do.
What about sort of the journey from, let's say someone leaves prison, they get picked up by you guys, and then they're in your team, and then are they able to access other teams in NRN? Like, what does that sort of pathway look like?
Clean Slate is its own ecosystem. So you've got the NRN community model where Clean Slate does all of that. So if I walked into Clean Slate as a service user, then the triaging of my case will be done by a Clean Slate practitioner. Psychosocial interventions will be done by a Clean Slate practitioner. The opposite substitute treatment will be done by a Clean Slate practitioner. The Clean Slate practitioner will refer to the academy. I know the community system, they are teamed to deliver certain elements. So you've got, if you walked into an RN, you'll get seen by triage. Triage would determine where you sit from a substance use perspective, and that would either be drugs or alcohol. And they're able to form you into psychosocial as well as, the ongoing interventions you get with one of those teams that you've been assigned to. Clean Slate deliver all of that and some, don't they?
Yeah, so we've got something unique here, the Open to Recovery, which is a pathway that's designed to target retail offenders, get them to rehab, and then support them after rehab with volunteering, work and housing. And it's sort of designed to get to the most chaotic people and get them to rehab or Booverdale, things like that. We meet them where they're at and sort of try and meet at a neutral place rather than them coming to, because I'm like mistrusting. So we'll meet them at cafe server and places like that. We'll do some preparation work with them for rehab. So I do 4, I call them pre-ab sessions, where I sort of talk them through what's going to be expected of them, what they can expect, sort of rules and stuff like that, get them ready.
So part of their pathway could be detox and resi rehab.
I think the stuff that James is talking about, we clearly needed a different approach in relation to service users in the criminal justice system. And that was what was born out of that was Open to Recovery, because the early assessment was you've got these service users that are committing volume crime. That means retail crime at a high rate. They're on the radar of the police. You've got retail providers, businesses wanting this to stop. And the positive thing is let's provide them with a rehab place, but let's do it really quickly. Do you know what I mean? Let's identify the rehab, let's get them in quickly, where the community pathway was a bit slower. So it was identified that we needed to do something a bit different for those in the criminal justice system, hence the project doing so well, with James being a part of that in West Mids, but also, being a part of it, an extensive part of it within Nottingham.
What's the major challenges facing Clean Slate as a part of your organisation?
The criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Yeah, the judicial and criminal justice system is a system which has gone through so many challenging changes, where clean slate's beholden to what the judiciary want to put in place. So James made a very good point. You'll have an individual, for example, James could be working with them and they could be recalled to prison, but they only be in prison for 7 days, come out again, and then they're recalled to prison again. And that just interferes with the treatment continuum. And that's just one element. You've got parts of the criminal justice system where you've got offender management teams that are just stretched to the limit. That puts a lot of pressure onto clean slate and the management of, service users effectively, and the management of risk. So we are working with a system that is completely challenged all the time due to historical events, underfunded, etc. But clean slate do the best with a very difficult situation with like practitioners like James being on board.
I think the thing that I find most challenging is like, so these people that are constantly being recalled, every time they come out, they're released with no address, no benefits. Now, I want to get somebody to recovery. How can I expect somebody to start, reducing their drug intake when they're sleeping on the streets? I think that's the thing that I find most frustrating.
I guess that's part of, I think a lot of substance use teams, I've worked in a few, it's about multi-agency working and getting everything lined up. Sometimes it happens, but it just feels like a fluke.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely, Rich. Yeah, it's really challenging for all services involved. There's a lot of knitting partners together, like you say, getting the offender managers to do what they need to do. We're getting what we need to do from a practitioner point of view. Other partners in social services, safeguarding, all those other elements. There's a lot of moving parts. And trying to get them all working together for the same aims. I'm not saying we don't, but there are so many competing challenges with all those services. Do you know what I mean? We do the best with difficult circumstances.
What about successes? Like, I think everyone has someone that they've worked with that might be a success, and or maybe surprised you. I love it when I get surprised.
Through Open to Recovery, I've had a few successful cases. One, when we first started working with him, he was sleeping in that chemical, where they put the blankets in the hospitals.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
So he was sleeping in one of them, supported him through his rehab, got in some volunteering positions, works in a rehab. Another lad in that constant recall system, constantly being recalled, again, supported him through rehab, housing, and he's just got a job with another service doing sort of rest referrals at police stations and stuff like that. I've had some success with Beaverdale as well. One client constantly being recalled, tried rehab twice, that didn't work. Beaverdale seems to have made a massive difference. She's just got a house and got her daughter back with her.
Amazing. I guess that's what we do, isn't it? As in Clean Slate or NRN or whatever, it's like trying to find a package that fits the individual. And it seems obvious, like if you take the drugs or the substance out of the equation, the need for crime is lessened.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
They're not getting recalled all the time. But it's getting people into treatment. Yeah. What are you, Jez? You've been doing this 25 years.
Yeah, I think it's very much what James said, really. I mean, I see it from a different sort of lens now, do you know what I mean? Because I'm not the boots on the ground practitioner anymore like James is. What I've seen constantly with Clean Slate is the ability to retain people in treatment for a long period of time, which has always been a consistent feature. Is the retention in treatment despite these people being really chaotic, and also people successfully leaving treatment. Do you know what I mean? So successful completions. And even if they don't return within the 6-month period, they may return, but the thing is they're taking that step forward. They've gone, I can get to this space and I can get here again. So they build on from where they've left off. Do you know what I mean? And for me, it's about improving social functioning. People are not going to be abstinent from drugs straight away, but each time they spend with the service or the practitioners within it, their social functioning improves, the self-worth improves. Do you know what I mean? And they're slowly taking those positive steps forward. And that's what I see as success. Don't matter how many times come back, as long as it's moving forward slowly.
I guess something we've always asked everyone who's been on, like, it can be a challenging job, can't it, working in substance use? So if we go ask you first, James, what makes you come into work every day?
I like working in changing environment. Like, I find it stimulates my brain. You know, coming from lived experience point of view where I felt like I didn't have the power to use my brain, and now I have. And also the support that I get from my colleagues. And seeing people change, I think it's probably one of the most rewarding things that you can witness when you know, like the successes earlier. Although we don't have that every day, but, you know, I come into work think maybe today is that day. And also, we've got bills to pay now.
Well, you, Jez?
So a lot of what James says, I think, it can be a very unforgiving and challenging environment to work in, because it is, you looking, and I think you've got to put, what does your success look like in this? And I think for me, it's like I said earlier on, it's what I like about seeing people taking small steps forward. I still like seeing people engaged in the service. Do you know what I mean? That's really important for me. Even if individuals are struggling, if they can come in and engage in the service, that's really positive. So that's success, to manage to get into service and engage with the providers of that service. I mean, when I was boots on the ground practitioner, people that make it to the point where they're drug free and, you know, they're getting their life back, they're seeing their life and journey not through the lens for substances, because I can see why people find solace in, you know, doing drugs. Do you know what I mean? It's a comfort, but they're finding their comfort and solace in something else, and that's their own success.
It's part of what people face, a bit of stigma, I suppose. You know, we know about the stigma of substance use, but I guess it's twofold for your guys, because there's the stigma of being part of the criminal justice system as well.
So I do a lot of work with businesses, police. I've done work with prisons where I'll go in and I'll share a bit about myself and my sort of experience of stigma now that kept me locked in addiction. Yeah, so I've gone to national businesses all over the country. Now, I've just recently finished, so Nottingham Police have changed their model to a neighbourhood model, so they've retrained their police in harm reduction, exploitation and addiction. So I've gone to each of the training events and shared my own personal story with that. And, you know, and when I do stuff like that, it's not about hitting the masses. If we can just get a few people, and each time I've had police officers who have been doing the job for years come up to me and say that I've changed that sort of way they view it.
And that was born out of the training that James is alluding to. Is there's a lot of we work very closely with the police at O2R, but on also other projects, we're very quite dialed in with police partners. But there was a new wave of police officers coming through, where the established police officers that worked on projects with us wanted to give them some education around this service user group. And you talk about stigma. They wanted new officers. When you may be arresting somebody, don't just look at them as just someone with substance use issues. There's a broader story. There's a bigger story there. We all know that there's a trauma there that might have not been addressed, and that might be why they are committing offences. So let's see them as a human being, and let's see how we can support them into treatment. So that training was sort of born out of those kind of discussions we had earlier on with police partners. As James has said, he's one of the key facilitators within that training, talking about his experience.
It's the one thing that people misunderstand about the system, or clean slate, or open to recovery, that you think you could dispel on this podcast.
I think it's about how many projects Clean Slate are involved in supporting service users that come through the criminal justice system, and also, you know, giving police partners, probation officers or probation service officers, you know, better understanding of the service user group, and not to stigmatise the service user group that comes in. Clean Slate are dialed into so many projects, from working with police, probation, working with prisons, as James says, training, having its own sort of treatment system Do you know what I mean? Where individuals come in and get a really good package of treatment around them. I think people don't fully understand, if you're a clean slate practitioner, how much work goes into that individual in the management of that case. And I think that sometimes it's a bit of a misconception about that.
I think the misunderstanding is that, you know, we do work as part of the system, but our job isn't to sort of keep people in that system. I see my job as to get people out of that system. That's the only way I can answer that.
I think that's a really good answer.
Like, we work alongside the system to try and draw people out of it.
I think that is a really good answer. I think it is. I think that's if you want to sum it all up, yeah. Yeah, to me, we complement what's happening in other parts, you know, especially in the criminal justice system. We have, you know, I suppose we're that light, aren't we, to service users that want a chance of treatment and want to be continually supported with their treatment needs. Clean Slate is the service that provides that.
Well, thanks for coming in, sparing us time. It's been a pleasure speaking to you and learning a bit more about Clean Slate.
Thanks, Rich.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Nottingham Recovery Network podcast. If you or someone you know are looking for support with their relationship with drugs and alcohol, we are here to help you. Visit www.nottinghamrecoverynetwork.com for more information.